which is the tunes of Stardew Valley.
Oh, I should have seen this coming.
This game is so special to me, and I remember when it came out, and I was going to classes. I was going to college, and this is Skyrim was probably the only game in my life at that point where I was like probably staying up way later than I should, going through the mod list on PC, playing it consistently, and I would stay up till like 3 a.m. doing that. There was no other game until Stardew Valley came out that was that for me. Like I had to get up at like 6 a.m. the next morning to get ready for class to drive, an hour and a half to Butte College. And I would stay up purposefully till 3 a.m. playing Stardew Valley because I was so sucked into it. And so like, just one more day. I got to play this. And during those late night sessions and early evening sessions, the music would just calm your ADD brain so much and just really bring a kind of nice warm blanket around you.
It was a nice cozy blanket.
Nice cozy blanket. This game is so cozy, and it's so stated how good this game is, but I want to highlight the music specifically because the guy who made it, Eric Barone is his name. He lives in Washington.
Eric Barone?
Eric Barone. It's
Eric Maloney?
What do you got against Italian names, David?
Dave Maloney?
Dave Maloney. Eric Barone is his name. He made all the music by himself. This is why Stardew Valley took like 5 years of his life to make, or 7 or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it was a lot.
So one guy made this game, and he made all the music too. And it's just such a cool success story in my mind for him. But one of the tracks specifically I want to highlight is probably the best set track in the game. And it's one of the winter themes. It's winter and the wind can be still. Remember when I first was playing this and I got to winter, it's basically the game, for those who aren't aware, it's basically like Harvest Moon. You have your farm that your grandpa gifted to you and he's dead now and you got to take it over. You got to run the farm. You got to make a profit, that kind of thing. It's kind of one of those cozy kind of games, farming games. And you can make relationships with the villagers and maybe eventually marry one of them, that kind of thing. And then you have like a bunch of different aspects as well, but that's basically the idea. When the winter theme hits on winter day 1, and I get out of my house in the game, and I'm, doing my crop. There's no crops. So I'm going into the barn. I'm getting my animals, making sure they're good, feeding them hay, blah, blah, blah. I then do my usual rounds, and I'm going to go gift as many gifts as I can for the week for to the villagers, because I want to be friends with everybody. That's what was my goal. I wanted to be friends with everybody and make as much money possible. The ultimate, capitalist / socialist together, I guess. I don't know.
Wow.
But anyway, I walk along the path. Imagine it's like 2:30 in the morning. I'm walking along the path and I'm playing this game. And then like my speakers are playing this music. And then I enter the village and then you hear dun, 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 dun. Like it brushes over you and it kind of soaks you in. This track does. It's called Winter, the Wind Can Be Still, starts playing. And I'm like, whoa. Also, it's late. I have to go to bed. I'm stressed out for everything in my life at that point, over school, life, girls, whatever. But when that hit, I kind of took a second. I was like, wow, this is like I never heard anything like that in my life in that track. And it was just really euphoric and just very beautiful. And I just want to highlight that track specifically and kind of paint you guys that picture.
Yeah.
But also in the mines during the winter, there's a track called Mines: Cloth. And it's another one where it's just like the winter theme in terms of it makes you feel like you are alone in this world, but you're also not alone. I don't necessarily know how to explain it, but those two tracks have been on like my, like I said before, my sleepy mix at night, where I'll just play it and go to sleep to this music. And the winter theme and the mines theme, the cloth one, is just so peaceful. And I kind of carried those songs with me since I've heard them. And it's always like a comfort to go back to.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I remember when it was before you moved out and we had bedrooms across from each other. I remember in the middle of the night, I'd get up to get a drink of water or something, and I would hear the Stardew Valley soundtrack coming from your room. And at first, I thought you had it on your subwoofers, but it was just like your phone and your speakers.
Oh yeah,
And
I was going to sleep. Yeah,
I was just like, at first, like, because it would fade in, it would fade out, and I would go and get something, and then I'd hear the dun dun, and I was like, shoot, because
some of those tracks start abruptly on that, on that playlist.
But I think it's funny. Like I think it's crazy and funny and interesting how music can kind of just touch us like that. There's a song that doesn't have anything to do with video games, but it's called Musical Revival by Forever Jones, which was a family that was an entire band. And one of their songs, Musical Revival, I really like it because every part of the song goes through a different part of music. Like the first part says, "My name is Rhythm, and I think it says I like to jive. Sometimes I make you laugh, sometimes I make you cry." And then I think it's the bridge where it's like everything's going on in the song, and then the girl says, "Now I can start a riot and an uprising. I can start a fire in you or put it out just the same." And then what my favorite line is, "I can speak your language to you perfectly." And it's just kind of talking about how music moves us and stuff like that. And I think that really is it when we play certain video games or when we listen to certain songs, either on the radio or online. It's just, there's always like that one song that just kind of touches you. Like that's kind of like, it stops everything. In my case, it'll stop everything and I'll be like, whoa, like that, like it makes you either think or it'll just like kind of stop your, like all the busyness of the world.
Yeah, and with the winter thing specifically, it kind of, whenever I hear it or it plays or it's on shuffle on my Spotify and then I hear it randomly, I kind of just take a moment and like, it's like, da 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 da. And when I hear it, I'm like, and I kind of stop and then I kind of take a breath and I'm like, oh, okay. And then it just keeps going. And I'm like,
yeah,
man, it's just, I don't know.
Music has a really great way of affecting people and stuff like that.
And that's kind of something I want to talk about like on another podcast later on is intentionality with things you create and what the goal of what your creation is, especially with music. I would love to know what Eric Barone's goal was creating the soundtrack and specifically these soundtracks. And if I ever get the chance to talk to him, that's something that that I would love to ask him. So David, let's hop to your fifth one. But before we do, is there any examples that you have that we were just talking about, like songs that kind of just hit you?
Let's see.
And not even video game specific, but anything.
I mean, there's too many to list. I think I would. I think I would go back to the Mimiga theme and cave story. I remember as soon as that particular track, it just kind of hit me in such a way, and I just kind of had to stop, and then it was just like suddenly I was transported back to an earlier time, a bygone era.
It's kind of like spiritual, kind of just.
Yeah,
when it affects you like that.
Well, it plays on like it's definitely emotional, I think for sure. But I don't know, maybe there's something deeper to it, like your brain specifically.
I mean, our brains are definitely wired to understand music. What's interesting is there's all sorts of, so if you dive into the rabbit hole that is music theory, there's all sorts of rules and information and things you can learn. But the interesting thing about music theory is rules you learn in music theory are not prescriptive, they're descriptive. So essentially the goal of music theory is to put names and systems to the things about music that our brains are already processing. So that's the thing about our brains is when we hear music, our brains are dissecting it. Our brains are looking at each individual element and analyzing it, but it's doing so subconsciously. We're not So what all we get is the end result, the feeling that you get from listening to it. But in the background, your brain is actually analyzing the music. And so music theory, broadly speaking, isn't a prescriptive system of how you're supposed to do music. It's a descriptive system to try and put names and rules to the things that our brain does naturally when listening to music.
And I think there's so much to be said about, I mean, everybody has that certain track that hits them, of course, but also think of it how your brain reacts. I mean, you see people who maybe are kids or something and they have maybe a form of autism and they're nonverbal or something like that. But music, in many examples, has been shown to really hit them and touch their brain in a way that they can understand it or that they feel something.
Yeah.
And it's something that, like specifically having like a form of autism and ADD as well. It's music's always been important to me, but there's something about, I don't know. There's something about music in the sense of somebody went out of their way and they thought of this and they figured out how to translate it onto a keyboard or a guitar or something. And they were able to transfer that emotion they were feeling or whatever the intent was behind it.
Yeah.
And it's cool that that's translatable between humans and with our brains in general, which
I-
we're getting a little deep here, but
Yeah. A little thing I want to add on that is I remember hearing a news story back when the iPods were still superior.
Whoa.
And it had moved on.
Still superior. Oh yeah, because iPhones now. I think.
Yeah. But I remember hearing a news story on one of the news stations that where people would donate their old iPod touches and their shuffles, and they would give it to old folks' homes, specifically people who had dementia or Alzheimer's. And they would put older music on there from the era of those people. And when they would listen to it, they would a lot of the older folks would remember the songs and they would remember the words. And it would make them very happy and just strike something up in them. And it was one of the most emotional things I ever saw.
And there's also like that video you can find online, and there's multiple probably examples of this, but the one that comes to me is the one of the daughter, the daughter who's going to get married, and her dad has dementia, and he doesn't remember who she is. She's in a wedding dress and everything. So they sit on the couch together in this video, and he was a very prominent painter, and he was really good at it. And so what they did is to get his brain like to remember things, they gave him a canvas and some paintbrushes and everything and just let him go. And so he would start painting, and then like probably after 5 minutes or something, he would kind of look up and be like, oh, hey, what's going on over here? And he's like, oh my God, it's my daughter. And he would remember. And then she would say, hey, Dad, I'm getting married today. He's like, oh my God, you're getting married. Like he would then remember. It's weird how the brain dissects, and especially when it has a disease like that, it can go back and it can remember things and pull things into memory. It's really fascinating.
And art can really trigger things in people.
And that's why art's important.
Yeah.
Is because not only to evoke emotion, but to inspire as well. Because you don't know who you're going to be inspiring when you make it.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Eric Barone, for making Stardew Valley. So